Thank you. Secretary Wright will now invite members of the committee to ask you questions in 5-minute rounds. I'll begin, and then we'll have Senator Heinrich after me, and then we'll alternate between Republicans and Democrats. Thereafter, in order of seniority, subject to the early bird rule adopted by the committee. So I'll begin now. Secretary Wright, the Energy Information Agency, or EIA, defines something known as the LCOE, the levelized cost of electricity, as, quote, the estimated revenue required to build and operate a generator over a specified cost recovery period. Now, as I understand it, this LCOE calculation does not take into account existing generation resources, stuff that's already in place, spinning out electrons, especially dispatchable generation, which is retiring at an alarmingly rapid pace. Additionally, wind and solar have been shown in many instances to have a negative effect on the levelized cost of dispatchable generation. This is because generation, like gas, nuclear, coal, among others, are forced to reduce output while still having fixed operational costs that go along with those enterprises, all to accommodate for electrons put onto the grid by other sources, intermittent renewable generation sources. I recently introduced a bill that would repeal all the IRA subsidies for inferior generation, like wind and solar. Can you elaborate on how tax incentives for those generating sources, the intermittent sources, actually increase the levelized cost of firm resources, thereby increasing costs for consumers at the end of the day?
Yeah, Senator, thank you for the question. It's an issue I'm quite passionate about. I worked on solar energy in graduate school many years ago. And so, as I said in my opening statement and have maintained ever since, I'm for all sources of affordable, reliable energy. I'm not for all sources of energy, period, only ones that contribute to affordable, reliable, secure energy. The levelized cost of ownership idea is decades old, and it came out to compare always-on dispatchable sources, the cost of it, which we build a new nuclear plant, a new coal plant, or a new gas plant, because they provide the same thing. They provide electricity on demand. I compare, it was never intended, of course, for a source that you don't know when it's going to be there and when it's going to be gone. That's just a completely different entity. When your child is born premature and you place that child in a life-saving incubator, it's not okay to say it's going to turn on when the wind starts blowing. Or, well, it's on right now, but when the sun goes down, it's probably going to be off till the morning. There simply are no customers for electricity that you may have it, you may not have it. I gave it, imagine if you had a competitor for Uber that came out, no-go, and they came out and said, our levelized cost per mile of transport going to be 10% cheaper than Uber. Everybody should run to that. It's cheaper. Now, we don't know when we're going to come pick you up, and when we do pick you up, we don't know we're going to drop you off, but our cost is 10% cheaper. They're just two entirely different things. And so, yeah, as you rightly pointed out, what matters is the system cost. But if you have sources that, I can talk more about the Texas electricity grid later, at peak demand is the actual time that you usually get the lowest delivery from renewables. So you have to have the other grid, the reliable grid, to provide electricity at peak demand to keep everyone alive and the incubator on. And then we have a whole second grid that comes and goes with the weather. And of course, to manage both of those together, it's guaranteed, and data has shown it in spades, to be more expensive and a less reliable grid. And further, that no-go company that wouldn't fly, if we subsidized it and helped them buy these vehicles and stand up a business with a business model that doesn't work, you just cascade a problem. They're very unique subsidies where we spend $1 of subsidy, and it doesn't defray consumer costs. The government spends $1 of subsidy, and consumers pay $1 extra for their electricity.
Thank you. No, that's helpful. Very good explanation. There is a residential solar company called Sonova that received $3 billion, a $3 billion loan guarantee from the previous administration's Department of Energy. that recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And now, Biden's Loan Programs Office Director, Jigar Shah, was aware of accusations that Sunnova defrauded seniors selling solar to those that were, quote unquote, on their deathbeds. Despite this, Mr. Shah instructed DOE staff to prioritize Sunnova's loan application after attending a dinner hosted by a Sunnova board member. The board member's spouse was the former chair of the DNC. The DOE Inspector General determined that Shah's actions potentially violated the ethical standards for executive branch employees. How can the American people be confident that the Loan Programs Office inside the Department of Energy is acting in their best interests when actions like those taken by Jigar Shah have undermined the credibility of that same office?
Huge undermining of the credibility, Senator, huge undermining. And it's one of the reasons people are mad at me for being slow and process-oriented, but it's in response to things like that we have created this program review process where we have a team of cross-functional people to evaluate every project of any meaningful scale. If it's a few $1 million or more, there's 500 such projects. We're going to evaluate every one of them in a business-like, professional manner, not a political manner, not a self-interested manner, but a business-like manner. And so, yeah, clearly we need a very different culture at DOE, and we are working every day to build that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Senator Heinrich.